All right, you guys voted for this one. This is Bentkey. This is a video about Bentkey from Jose, our friendliest bird. It's about the Daily Wire's new streaming service for kids, which is interesting. At least they're doing something. They're complaining about how they don't like, modern day whatevers. Oh, we don't like modern day blah, blah, blah. Media sucks now, blah, 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 blah. They make their own. So, yeah, let's go.
22 conservative media out in March of 2022, conservative media outlet The Daily Wire announced it would be investing $100 million into children's content over the next 3 years.
Is that grooming? Okay.
On October 16th, 2023, they launched a new streaming service aimed at...
Is that like a hot Reba? What the fuck?
And over the next 3 years. On October 16th, 2023, they launched a new streaming...
I keep missing it, dude. Okay, not bad.
They launched a new streaming service aimed at children called Bentkey.
Right,
there were some fears raised about this being a platform to brainwash children into supporting a right-wing agenda, so I'm going to go into some detail about Bentkey.
Here's the thing. I'm obviously not a dirty right-winger, but my thing is that... it's kind of what you do is you teach kids to have your values. So if that's what a conservative wants to teach their kids, like whatever. I disagree with it, but also it's kind of, you're right. No,
it's programming and try to make sense of what this all means for the Daily Wire. The origins of this initiative are a little murky, but one clear fact is that the name was originally DW Kids. Back in that press conference in March.
DW Kids. I think, that's not bad. For some reason, I like Bentkey more. I don't know why. DW Kids is just too childish. And maybe that's why they thought, like, optically it was a little too childish. Maybe that's why they changed it.
2022, it was said that this project was originally intended to be announced in November of the same year, though it was moved up on the schedule to take advantage of clips on social media spread by Christopher Rufo that supposedly revealed Disney pushing a secret gay agenda in their programming.
On my little pocket of, proud family Disney TVA, the showrunners were super welcoming. Meredith Roberts and, our leadership over there has been so welcoming to, my not at all secret gay agenda.
That clip is of Latoya Raveneau.
Yeah, making like an offhanded comment, like a joking comment about how she wants to make characters gay because she's like, I think she's a gay woman. It's not really like an agenda. It's kind of a joke. Like, of course she wants to add more representation of gay people because there are kids that are gay and it makes them feel better when they're when they're actually represented. It's not really that deep. It's not, but conservatives have a fucking meltdown over everything. They think everything is grooming, except for when priests molest kids. They're okay with that one, I guess. I don't know. Sorry.
Speaking to her own personal experience as a director on The Proud Family. But this was blown up to mean that Raveneau was some kind of big power broker in the Disney world and that there was some kind of secret gay agenda that they were putting into all of their movies and TV shows, instead of it just being a producer on one show explaining her own experience. And that by putting this stuff into their movies and TV shows, this would somehow brainwash children. There was another clip that got heavily circulated featuring Carrie Burke, president of 20th Television, supposedly calling for 50% or more characters to be LGBTQIA and racial minorities.
That's a little much, but okay.
At least according to Rufo's tweet. Of course, if you actually watch the clip, you can...
But I guess I don't care. It's just like, is that accurate? I guess so. There's a lot of gay, bisexual, whatever. I don't care.
See, it's just not true. She literally does not say that.
And I hope this is a moment where, the 50% of the tears... sorry, are coming.
She's getting emotional talking about representation because her kids are part of marginalized communities. And then she says 50% of the tears are coming. She's talking about crying, not casting decisions for future projects. Her remarks...
Damn, how did they even extrapolate that from saying 50% of the tears are coming? That's fucking wild.
It's not even really about increasing the number of characters from these communities. Rather, it's about increasing the quality of characters within these stories, letting them do more than simply be the secondary gay character who tells a story about how horrible it is to be gay. They want to see these characters be part of the world and not have their otherness centered in all of their stories.
That's fair.
There were also clips shared from this meeting where employees expressed concerns over Governor Ron DeSantis' recent bill that they believed would erase the presence of LGBT plus people.
I think that you should be more concerned with Ron DeSantis' bill that introduces high heels to himself. That makes him look weird and funny and embarrassing. So I'm just saying, I'm not trying to be rude, but be confident if you're a short king,
So it's never really explained how this means Disney has a nefarious agenda. Looking at the clips on their own, it really just reveals that some of the people who work at Disney have politics to the left of DeSantis and find his policies alarming. As the source of these leaks, no one should ever take Christopher Rufo seriously. He's admitted to muddying the meaning of words to advance his agenda and twisting facts to the point where they no longer reflect reality. Rufo's grift is made pretty obvious from this excerpt from a recent Vox article where his book, America's Cultural Revolution, was being reviewed. This article is written from the perspective of its author, Zach Beauchamp. Rufo claims business no longer exists to maximize profit, but to manage diversity and inclusion. This last line in particular struck me as absurd. Even he couldn't possibly think corporations cared more about their DEI than profits. When I pressed him, Rufo said the passage was intended to describe the ultimate objectives.
I mean, yeah, no, business. I don't think that these businesses care at all about. I mean, listen, there are people inside of corporations that care about like marginalized communities because they're people, right? And people can be empathetic, especially if you're somebody that's in a marginalized community. You're probably going to be more empathetic to that community. Although those white saviors, they care so much. But that being said, the business exists to business to make money. And so a lot of times, like, yeah, the business has an incentive to allow people to advocate for more representation because it can make them more money. And if that didn't exist, they probably wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it. I mean, that's why in different countries, you'll see that like every country or company, in America will make a gay version of their, logo during Pride Month, but not in other countries that don't accept gay people, right? It's a business tactic for the most part. So something to keep in mind.
Of Marcuse and his ideological errors, not to depict reality. Further pressing yielded the claim that his book couldn't be read literally, that his artful and kind of narrative manner requires the reader to question whether there was a kind of literary device at play while reading. These clips from the Disney employees can probably be explained a similar way. They aren't depicting the reality of a company-wide policy regarding queer themes being put into every Disney project, rather some kind of ultimate objective in the future, existing in the land of the hypothetical. But that's a prediction that, so far, hasn't in the least bit proven to be true. As the article helpfully points out, it's not that institutions like businesses and governments have been taken over by leftists, rather these institutions have co-opted the messaging of left-wing critiques without radically changing anything. Disney still cares more about making money than it does about pushing any kind of gay agenda. And while various TV shows and movies include a little more representation, it's hardly the harbinger of some kind of socialist utopia. In this case, the narrative matters more than the facts, which is why it was the perfect news story for the Daily Wire to latch onto to generate some attention for its kids' content strategy. By creating this sense of threat to its audience from Disney, they can then direct that audience towards alternatives that...
Yeah, that makes sense. It's fear-mongering just so they can promote their own product. But they did add that gay kissing scene in that one movie, and that's scary. It wasn't. It just, they could have made it better. It was, come on, make them make out. Make the lesbians make out in the movie. That's what I think. That's all I'm saying.
They happen to sell. The Daily Wire, with some help from Rufo, are creating a problem and then selling the solution. Back in that March 2022.
Yeah, that part of that's true. Just to keep in mind, though, like there does feel like, and maybe my feelings are misplaced, but there does feel like there's a lot of pandering to force representation and marginalized groups that gets annoying. And I think that part of it is that like the Daily Wire is absolutely homophobic and thinks that there's this magical gay conspiracy because they're dumb idiots. But at the same time, it's not exactly being helped by, in general, a lot of media implementing weird forced representation as like a virtue signal. That's how it feels a lot of the time. It seems like in general people are I'm still raw over the Star Wars movies. The sequels kind of sucked. Like the first sequel was fine. The seventh was like, oh, that wasn't too bad. It should have ended better. Kylo Ren should have won the fight between him and Rey. It wouldn't have changed anything other than establishing that he was actually a threatening character. But they did hurt his character by doing that. But mostly it was written decently. And then the eighth movie just killed every storyline. It was just fucking weird. And they had incredible characters. They had Brienne of fucking Tarth or whatever in there. It's funny because people are like, oh, they just don't like women. They had some beautiful, incredible actors. And I don't mean physically beautiful, although they are perfectly fine, like whatever. But I wasn't commenting on their physical attractiveness. I just meant beautiful in the sense of being actors. They were very good. They were very effective. And it's like you just threw these people away. You threw the storylines away lazily. And then the last one was just like an attempt to create a new storyline just for the sake of it. And it's like, it feels like you're putting representation into stuff and then not putting care into that piece of media. And then people are just really associating the dislike with the representation. But part of it is because it just seems like you're looking to think that you can make a shit ass script with, a gay character or a woman and it makes it better. But if anything, that's the real sexism. That's the real bigotry, is making the movies suck. You know, you should be like, okay, we need to make this movie with the female lead or the gay lead really good because people are going to over scrutinize us. So let's put all our resources into it, especially multi-billion-dollar company like Disney. It's like, what the fuck? So part of that's to blame too.
This conference, 2 shows were announced for DW Kids. The first was Chilla Time by Eric Branscombe and Ethan Nicole. Branscombe had worked as a writer on the Christian animated series Veggie Tales in the House.
Oh shit, man. I loved VeggieTales.
And Nicole is the creative director of the conservative comedy website, The Babylon Bee. Okay. This show would later be named Chipchilla, and it follows the antics of an animated family of chinchillas.
I mean, it really is a better name. They're seeming to be doing pretty well, like with that. Like, I think Bentkey's better than DW Kids. I think part of it is to separate themselves from like that. They make it its own entity almost. Like they're connected, but over time, maybe you don't realize it, kind of a thing. But cool.
I'll have a bit more to say about that one later. The other show announced was Doodles with Noodles, about a guy who draws with a puppet.
A guy who draws with his dick? I'll draw a fucking noodle doodler. That's interesting.
This one also features Ethan Nicole, though, as a performer and not just as a co-creator. Okay. So far, no release date has been announced for this particular program, and it may have been indefinitely shelved. I want to note that the Daily Wire's $100 million investment into children's content is in addition to another $100 million that the Daily Wire is investing into creating entertainment for older audiences. That's included releasing several movies to limited success. You can check some of my other videos on that subject if you want to see how it's going. All of this sounds like a lot of money being spent, and this is how Daily Wire President Jeremy Boring explains where the money is coming from.
We believe that there is an underserved audience that is longing for these alternatives. There's an underserved audience that has just been waiting to purchase content that they can believe in. I know that 50% of everyone who encounters that content is going to want to come over to dailywire.com and subscribe here instead.
The Daily Wire only rarely makes its numbers publicly available. We only have any sense of their financial health from some statements in 2022. Boring announced a run rate of $200 million in June of that year, though it was updated to nearly $200 million by November of the same year.
Wow.
This means that the company expected to earn $200 million in revenue for that year.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I don't know that the Daily Wire is necessarily. Of course, they're interested in making money. Like, duh. Like, I'm not saying they wouldn't be, but I don't know that they necessarily expect to make $200 million a year. I think that they have convinced themselves that like gays are that bad, that wokeness is that bad, that they're willing to take a financial hit for hopefully a financial gain in the future. But this is almost more of a point of entry for Daily Wire. This is their hot dog. This is their Costco hot dog. This gets you to go to Costco. Oh, I can get gas for like 50 cents cheaper a gallon. I'm going to go to Costco and get gas. Oh, I'm here. Oh, the hot dogs are $1.50 for a big ass hot dog and a drink. Well, let me go there and get one. Well, I'm here. Oh, their chickens are really cheap. $5 for a whole rotisserie chicken. Well, that's really cheap. Well, here, the idea is that you're there and you're gonna buy other things. So yeah, you'll take a loss on your hot dog or you'll take a loss on your Bentkey subscription, but you get a bunch of fucking conservative kids in the future. I think that's part of their thought process.
We don't know how much of this revenue is being taken up by expenses. Boring has said that the Daily Wire is profitable, but how much profit it's making exactly is not really known at the moment. If that revenue estimate is accurate, the Daily Wire would need to spend a third of its revenue on its entertainment ventures every year for the next 3 years to meet the minimum spending limit they've set for themselves. That is a lot of money to be spending on a type of content that they aren't particularly known for. This push into kids' content is a major financial investment for the company, and it relies on the assumption that there are many more potential customers who don't currently have Daily Wire memberships who are ready to open their wallets for its kids' content.
Yeah, you have to be a member to do Costco gas. It's like $50 a year, yeah.
The number of subscribers the Daily Wire has is also something of a mystery. Last year, we saw numbers in June of 890,000.
To be honest with you, my mom pays for my Costco membership. I was like, all right, I'm not going to say anything, you know.
1,000 subscribers, and that hit 1 million subscribers in November. So that's somewhere slightly more than 110,000 new subscribers over the course of 6 months. This was part of a big push for new subscribers the company was making that year, signing the likes of Jordan Peterson and making deals with PragerU. A growth of 12% for the company seems decent, though we don't really know how much they spent trying to get this all off the ground. And
they're just trying to keep you hooked, you know?
Jeremy Boring's ambitions require a lot more than 12% growth. Speaking to Axios in an article last year, he said, "Succeed in our effort to create a true news and entertainment alternative for the millions of Americans tired of the hegemony of the woke giants. We have to grow 10 times, and then we have to grow 10 times again." Even with the numbers we have available, the Daily Wire needs to be growing much faster than it currently is to keep up with Boring's ambition of reaching millions of Americans. So this kids' content really needs to hit hard and generate a big influx of new subscribers to their services. DW Kids didn't do much to differentiate.
I mean, it might. It's possible. I don't. This is the thing. I don't think that they have to be as successful as we're making it seem. I really think that it's more about just getting the foot in the door, hoping to have like a decent basis. I mean, it seems like a lot of these people, even that work for them, like they have Adam Carolla, feel very disaffected by progressives, and it makes them, I don't know, I feel like there's like an ideology attached to this in such a heavy way, where these individuals would be okay with doing poorly because like they are dislike the left so much, you know?
Itself from Disney when it announced one of its first major hires, Chris Sonnenberg, an Emmy-winning showrunner from the Disney series Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure. If Disney is the problem, it seems strange to be hiring someone from there to serve as an executive producer, but he does have experience running a successful TV series, so it does make sense to hire him. Throughout 2023, we didn't hear a whole lot about DW Kids, aside from announcing that Rob Schneider would be playing Chum Chum Chilla, the father on Chip Chilla.
We booked our entire cast as well, including our good friend, the incredibly talented and hilarious Rob Schneider.
Ooh, I liked Rob Schneider's old movies. They're funny. It's so weird though when people go so far to like one direction. Like they become so cringe and annoying. It's so annoying. I used to like follow him on Twitter when I had a Twitter. I was just like, oh my god, it's fucking eye roller constantly. It's like, shut the fuck up.
As someone who was keeping tabs on this project, I thought maybe they had run into some kind of difficulties. But then it was announced in October of 2023 that it would be debuting as its own distinct streaming service. And it was no longer going to be called DW Kids, it would now be called Bentkey. This was done to differentiate it from the more overtly political projects that might come to mind when people find out that the DW stands for Daily Wire. They announced that,
or maybe it's Duty Wiener,
that an annual subscription for Bentkey costs $100.
Not bad.
If you're wondering where the term Bentkey even comes from, it apparently has to do with a key Jeremy Boring wears around his neck. The key is from a small theater in Texas that Boring used to work at.
Oh, dude, he's a fucking dude. He's a fucking theater nerd. There's so many fucking theater nerds, dude. I can't handle how many goddamn theater nerds there are. What the fuck?
It has some kind of personal significance for him. Bentkey Ventures is also the name of the LLC that the Daily Wire is owned under, so the name isn't a new one for the company. When Bentkey launched, we got what seemed like some revisionist history. Going back to the announcement for what would be Bentkey back in March of 2022, Boring said that this was in the work for months.
I want to be clear that DW Kids is not a direct response to the leak tape that we heard from Disney today. We've been working on this for months.
In a more recent video, Boring said that this was an idea Ben Shapiro had after the Disney clips were posted by Rufo, and they just announced it as a spontaneous, ambitious venture.
A little over a year ago, those tapes from Chris Rufo leaked of what was going on inside Disney, and you said, we should do something, we should launch into kids content. I wrote you back and said, you don't know how to run a business, this is impossible.
Wait, that's weird. Why did he say that he's thinking about this for a long time? Okay, whatever.
What you're suggesting?
I mean, I guess maybe they were thinking about it for a long time and never pulled the trigger, and then it was like, we have to do something now, and they became very spontaneous about that.
Never possibly happened. And then I laid back in bed to go back to sleep for another 40 minutes, and as I sat there, I thought, damn it. He's right.
It's hard to make sense of these two conflicting stories, and it seems like a strange thing to lie about. It's hard to imagine the March conference was done spontaneously, considering they announced 2 shows complete with graphics and key creative staff. I'm not sure how you put that together.
I mean, it looks like shit. So I wouldn't doubt that it's called Chilla Time. I think that they just threw together something to announce to people to see what the hype would be. And then that's why they changed everything. DW Kids, okay. Here's Chilla Time, and they're like, look at this. This looks like fucking Dave the Barbarian. You know, that's why. I mean, I'm assuming that's why everything changed.
In 24 hours, though it is possible that this was intended to be part of the Daily Wire Plus and not its own streaming service. Either way, it certainly wasn't the entirely spontaneous idea that Boring was suggesting it was when speaking to Shapiro. This is common in how Boring speaks, though, constantly exaggerating and presenting his business as some kind of fly-by-the-seat trailblazing mavericks.
And we're snipers. They're just machine guns.
Oh,
we'll hit the target every single
Everybody
time.
come.
Because we have to hit the target every single time, and they don't.
One of the overriding themes in the messaging around Bentkey is that the programming would not be in any way political.
This is really a safe space for your kids. You can put your kids in front of Bentkey and who actually share your values and who aren't going to seek to twist their minds in some particular political or cultural direction.
So let's take...
Well, obviously that's not the case. Like, they obviously want to encourage you to go into a particular direction. It's just their direction they feel is considered a normal, so it's not considered a direction to them. That's what they're really trying to communicate. But they are obviously trying to have an influence on your kid to go into a direction. Duh. That's why
Take
they're
a look
doing
at some of the shows on Bentkey to see how apolitical they may or may not be. Bentkey launched with
Look at the
150
monkey.
episodes from 18 different shows.
Wow.
There was a mix of original and licensed programming, with 4 of the shows being wholly owned by the Daily Wire. Of the remaining 14 other shows,
Okay.
13 of them have been licensed, and 1, Gus Plus Us, was not technically an original show, but now is in some kind of exclusive deal that has brought it over to Bentkey. Its first season streamed on Google Play and Amazon Prime. Let's look at the original shows first. The 4 of them are Chipchilla, A Wonderful Day with Mabel McClay, Kid Explorer, and Kid Fit Go. As the first show mentioned by DW Kids, Chipchilla seems like...
I mean, Kid Fit Go sounds like maybe a way to encourage kids to exercise more. It doesn't sound too bad. That's what I'm saying. Like when I get more money, this is a little off topic, but I kind of want to get I want to get one of those VR treadmills. That just seems so fucking cool.
the best place to start.
Good
In addition
exercise,
to
yeah.
Rob Schneider, it also features the voice work of Laura Osnes, who has been in several Broadway productions and made some headlines when she departed from a charity performance of Crazy for You because she didn't want to be vaccinated. The rest of the principal cast is made up of Lucy Capri, Josiah Hidalgo, and Deacon Branscombe. They are all children, so I have nothing to say about them other that they are in the show. Although I think, based on his name, Deacon Branscombe, who plays Chubbly Chilla, the baby of the family, might actually be the son of Eric Branscombe, who's one of the co-creators of the show. And if he's putting his baby into the show, I think that's incredibly sweet and adorable. The premise for Chip Chilla is that parents Chum Chum and Chinny are raising 3 children, Charla, Chip, and Chubbly.
Whoa,
The kids
a
get
lot
up
of
to
words.
hijinks while the parents try to teach them some lessons about growing up. It's basic kids entertainment. If you were wondering about any politics in the show, for the most part, I didn't notice any overt right-wing messaging. While the kids
It
are...
just seems to be probably like a little more conservative of a household, like nothing too big of a deal. Like that would be smart if they did stuff like that. That would be very smart of them. You'd fucking die.
homeschooled, we don't get much in the way of critiques of the Department of Education or teachers' unions, at least not in the episodes I watched. And the series is still in the process of airing, so more episodes are to come, although there are cameos by Jeremy Boring and Matt Walsh.
I shall defeat Captain Bronto, for he is weak, and I am less weak.
Of the 2
Okay. Matt Walsh is such a fucking... He's just such a doofus.
episodes I sampled, it was hard to really pull out anything other than the show being incredibly mediocre. The acting and animation is all serviceable, though the writing is flat, and the designs seem generic. As a grown adult, though, I'm not sure I'm meant to be assessing the quality of this show. It's meant for children, and it's entirely possible I just...
Well, yeah, but then you have stuff like Bluey where people, like, they cum their pants for it. They're like, oh my god, this is the greatest thing in the entire world ever being made. This is fucking incredible. Like, you know... So, I mean, any good kid show, in my opinion, should have a solid appeal to adults. But then again, you know, maybe you're not a parent. I don't really know. So I'm not either. But
wouldn't understand what
yeah,
makes
this
this
seems to be like their Bluey. Yeah.
show good or bad compared to other kids' shows. Or at least that's what I thought until I did a bit more research. Anyone with youngsters in their life might be familiar with an Australian series called Bluey. It's about a family of dogs having fun adventures around their home. Upon the debut of Chip Chilla, many people noticed a distinct similarity between the two, from the animation style to the opening theme music. An interesting parallel here is that if we look at the
Kind of reminds me of the Doug Funny thing, like da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about.
first images of the Chinchilla program, back when it was called Chilla Time, the art style was very different. If we compare it to what Chip Chilla would eventually become, and put Bluey in the middle, it seems like one show likely influenced the style of the other.
That's smart.
This similarity got some coverage in the Australian press, and it even garnered an article in The Guardian.
Yeah, I mean, it gives... That's just all press for... I think that's one of the things that conservatives do kind of well, too, is they kind of embrace the hatred. And they don't care about it as much. It's one of the things that really... It's kind of smart.
There are striking similarities between these copy rats and our favourite healers.
In response to these observations, specifically the article in The Guardian, Boring denied that they were trying to make a conservative Bluey because, supposedly, Bluey is already conservative. It also sounds like Boring is a fan of the show in spite of its streaming on Disney+, which again raises the question of how much of a woke agenda Disney has when one of its most popular shows is apparently conservative. He then added, Chip Chilla is wonderfully written, is utterly enjoyable, and is, of course, almost completely distinct from Bluey. In fact, the only real
Of course she's going to say that.
similarity between the two shows is that both feature loving and engaged nuclear families with great values who actually enjoy being together.
I think the Bluey, though, isn't like the dad a beta cuck and the mom actually is the alpha Chad, you know? The mom works and the dad doesn't. Isn't that the premise of that a little bit?
While personally to me
Nothing
it
wrong with
seems
that.
like a bit of a ripoff, or at least heavily inspired by Bluey, the more important question is, how do these two shows compare? So after watching Chip Chilla, I decided to watch a few episodes of Bluey. And after watching Bluey, I realized something about Chip Chilla. It's not that I, as an
There's no
adult,
chips in
can't
it.
infer some kind of quality from a kid's show. It's that Chip Chilla is hopelessly mediocre. Because Bluey is an absolute gem of a TV show.
All right, relax.
She's had this many times.
You can be the bum bongos. Boom, 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 boom.
The characters in
What the fuck was... Why show us just that? That was weird.
Bluey are far
What the
more charming,
fuck?
and the lessons learned are more cleverly taught. For example, comparing the two, in the first episode of Chipchilla, Charla and Chip have to learn that it's important to give consideration to their younger siblings.
As oldest, I'm probably the only one who won't be scared by herself. So I'll stay. Yes, yes, yes! I'm first! Finally!
Chip then learns from her example, which is perfectly fine. On the other hand, in the first episode of Bluey, with Bluey not letting her younger sister Bingo have a turn in their game, Bingo manages to get a hold of the pretend magic xylophone they were playing with to freeze Bluey so she can explain her feelings.
You just take all of the tones. And it makes me feel sad.
What?
I will unfreeze you if you promise you will let me have tones too. Blink 2 times if yes.
And Bluey learns the importance of including her younger sister.
Cringe.
Here, Bingo, you can unfreeze him. Thanks, Bluey.
Wow, so
Not
nice.
just yet. I like the Daddy Water Fountain.
So 2 lessons are learned here: the importance of sharing during playtime and taking the time to listen to your younger sister's feelings. It's a sweet little story and was handled in a way that felt more organic compared to the flash of inspiration seen in Chipchilla. I don't expect I'll be keeping up with either of these shows in the future, but Bluey seems like the clear and obvious
Either of them, or you don't like? I thought you said you liked Bluey. What the fuck?
winner between the two. I found myself genuinely laughing at a couple of the jokes. That feeling seemed to be pretty popular. Writing for Slate, Dan Kois compared the two, saying, "The action in Bluey is driven primarily by the children's imaginations. Bluey and Bingo put their parents through their paces, making them pretend to be on an island, act out a visit to a hair salon, or spray an actual hose in their own face. In Chipchilla, conversely, it's the parents who drive the action, because the kids in Chipchilla are being homeschooled. So when Chip pretends to be an astronaut, or his big sister Charla becomes a reporter for the Chilla Times, it's because fun-loving Chum Chum has told them to do so. The result is that while Bluey feels a little like magic, Chipchilla, though it has a fast pace and some good jokes, feels like school, since that's exactly what it is for these kids."
That's interesting. That's very interesting. The problem with this, or the interesting, is that like this is the problem again. Like this is, I feel like it's so deliberate what Daily Wire is doing. They're just going to listen to criticism and they'll possibly just change aspects of it to be like, oh, well, let's change this. I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, it kind of makes sense. So, you know, you're kind of just helping them out at that point.
Some reviews from viewers are less kind. "Thought it might look entertaining after seeing the change in design from the early initial reveals, so we tried it out. My 5-year-old daughter and 3-year-old son tried for an episode and a half before asking for something else. They clearly weren't feeling it, and my wife and I weren't either. We tried again the next day, but my daughter almost immediately wanted Gabby's dollhouse instead, and my son asked for Bluey. There were positive reviews, though, like this one. Bluey seems more for families. Jokes and parenting commentary for the adults. This seems more for kids. Clearer meaning and principle per episode. Teaches morals, lessons, and references classic novels and historic figures.
Interesting. That's very interesting. The one line, the clear moral meaning. This seems more for kids, clear meaning and principle per episode. The reason I think that's interesting is because I think that we as a society do a really good job of infantilizing kids. And I know that sounds silly because kids are kids, but I think that kids want to be, kids try to act over their age because they want to be grown up because they think it's cool. And then adults treat kids like less of their age. And we don't hit this like proportionate middle ground. And I feel like it's almost, it's like, yeah, this is clearer for these kids. But to me, that communicates like, oh, kids maybe don't understand these things. Maybe kids can't necessarily understand. Maybe they don't understand the nuances of the subtleties of some of the other messages in Bluey. And it's like, is that true? Or are you just, maybe you're the dumb one. I don't know. You know, I just find that interesting.
Style and music are the same as Bluey, so if that bothers you, you could go watch another show. But the educational and entertainment value is there for my kids. I should note my kids are early elementary school age and down. My kids love it and are excited for Saturday morning cartoons.
Wow.
Here's to hoping enough people will support content like this. While there were plenty of other reviews sharing a variety of opinions, it was difficult to find ones that weren't bogged down as to whether this show was either a ripoff of Bluey or depended on how much someone loved or hated the Daily Wire. The positive ones did speak to what was driving a lot of the early adopters of this service, though, to fight back against Disney's supposed woke agenda. It's that grievance that fuels a lot of conservative politics. It's hard to imagine that same grievance would be able to fuel a media company that's looking to dethrone Disney. To marginally defend Chipchilla here, regardless of what anyone might think about the individual merits of each show, the original is always going to have an innate advantage over the imitator. So Chipchilla always had an uphill
especially since it's higher quality, you know.
Battle. And it's strange that Bentkey, which is trying to differentiate itself from Disney, would just make a copy of one of its most popular shows. While imitation is the sincerest form of plagiarism, it doesn't quite live up to the promise of providing a genuine alternative to Disney. This is a pattern we're going to see with Bentkey. It's not really bringing anything new or different to the table, just watered-down versions of things we've already seen. That brings us to the next original, It's a Wonderful Day with Mabel McClay. It stars Katie Chase, who co-created the series with her husband, Brian.
You know what they should do on Bentkey? They should get Lamb Chop. Do you guys remember Lamb Chop? I used to love Lamb Chop. So I know it's a little obscure, But that would be actually a very interesting thing for them to try to get at.
Chase. They operated a children's improv class in Los Angeles for 10 years, which has apparently given them the experience they needed to make a children's TV show. Although Katie had appeared in a handful of small roles on TV, it was the personal relationship she and Ryan had with Jeremy Boring.
Imagine somebody gets like really popular. Like this is where their career starts. They're like, oh yeah, your first role was on doing something for Bentkey, and they're like, yeah, I remember those days. I was cringe as hell. You love Lamb Chop? Lamb Chop was fucking good, man.
That got them the chance to make this series. Jeremy Boring highlights the show in particular as the big standout on Bentkey.
When people look back at our legacy 100, 50 years from now, that's the thing that they talk about the most. Maybe we make 100 or 200 or 500 episodes of Mabel McClay, and there will be kids who say, yeah, my childhood was Mabel McClay.
You know what's interesting about this Mabel McClay character? She's a ginger. Redheads usually get replaced with black people. So, very surprising.
McClay obviously owes a lot to Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, the PBS classic that is widely regarded as one of the all-time greats in children's television. As a side note, Fred Rogers was also a champion of public television and in general seemed like a great guy. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood is also a full repudiation of the idea of apolitical children's television, and Fred Rogers would often include progressive political messages in his show. For example, he was subtly endorsing integration during the Civil Rights era. Actor Francois Clemens reflects on his time working on the show.
To say that he didn't know what he was doing, or that he accidentally stumbled into integration or talking about racism or sexism, that's not Mr. Rogers. It was well planned and well thought out, and I think it was very impactful.
Perhaps his finest performance in front of children was his testimony in front of the U.S. Senate in...
Damn, Mr. Rogers is a fucking... He's grooming people to care about black people? What the fuck?
1969, where he made a powerful speech to protect public broadcasting.
And I feel that if we in public television can only make it clear that feelings are mentionable and manageable, we will have done a great service for mental health. I think that it's much more dramatic that two men could be working out their feelings of anger. Much more dramatic than showing something of gunfire.
Those are some pretty big shoes to fill. In an interview, the chases seem pleasant enough, and they are particularly keen on keeping the content apolitical and also not including any references to their Christian faith. So how is A Wonderful Day with Mabel McClay? It begins with an opening theme that I can only describe.
It's very interesting, though, the approaches that are being taken. I wonder why. I know it sounds weird, right? But I wonder why they're taking that angle of, like, progressives are a little more in your face about their values, at least generally. And this is trying to be like, well, let's not be so aggressive. Why are you hiding that political value? Is that what it is? It's like almost a slow psyop. It's like when you start with fucking putting a bunch of femboys on 4chan to try to get people to want to fuck femboys. You know what I mean? Is this what it's supposed to do? I wonder.
Describe as low effort.
Well, it's a wonderful day. It's a wonderful day. It's a wonderful day. It's a wonderful day.
Oh, is it a wonderful day?
As a comparison, Mr. Rogers sang a whole song about being his neighbor.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine?
It might not be entirely fair to go straight to the gold standard for shows like this, so let's take a look at the opening theme to the Canadian knockoff of Mr. Rogers, Mr. Dress Up.
Mr. Dress Up.
While Mr. Dress Up doesn't sing, the little animated intro is a bit more involved and charming than the one you hear for It's a Wonderful Day with Mabel McClay. One of the goals of Mabel McClay was to provide...
Are you saying that you don't understand? I don't think this guy gets it. It's a wonderful day with Mabel McClay, dude. Are you not? What the fuck are you not getting right now? Come on, bro.
More relaxed, less hyperactive version of children's television, and it's evident that the energy on the show is turned very low compared to other shows that bombard kids with sounds and images.
They gave me this wonderful...
Which is probably a good thing, because I feel like kids are fucking psychopaths. They watch fucking Cocomelon and they go insane.
box. Sure makes a good whatchamathing to wonder about.
Okay.
Let's take a look.
Critical strength, yes,
Sure is nice, isn't it?
The premise is basically Mabel is hanging around her house, enjoying her day by talking to friends and learning about the world. The episode I watched focused on creativity, with each section kind of reinforcing that idea. In this one, she talks to her puppet dog friend. She speaks to banjo player Ron Block. And there's an animated story about a rabbit learning to be brave enough to create. There's some solid advice in here for kids, like when Ron Block suggests that if you're having trouble being creative, it's a good idea to take a break and let yourself recharge.
That's true. Sometimes you just need a little break. You need to take a little time off. Get rid of that writer's block. Maybe that's why his name is Ron Block.
I think the hearts of the chases are in the right place, and I'm not going to pick apart every aspect of the show and pretend that the animated cardinal wearing the police badge is some kind of endorsement for a theocracy. The show itself is just kind of a slow, chill vibe, and it seems more bland than wholesome to me. Like, look at this Rube Goldberg machine they make. It's just...
I mean, I wouldn't doubt that it's going to start bland. I mean, until they find their footing. I don't know how experienced these people are with kids stuff. So far, it doesn't seem like they're massively experienced.
a ball going down various ramps.
You used to watch Mr. Dress Up. What the fuck? Oh, I accidentally tapped target. That's so cringe. Holy fuck.
It's kind of wacky and weird, I guess, but not in a way that's very interesting. After watching the show, I felt a lot like Mabel McClay after she watched the animated section of her own show.
Wasn't that something?
It's probably not going to be bad for kids, and unlike Chip Chilla, the inspiration is a beloved classic and not a show that's currently running on another streaming service. So one can argue that this show is filling a void. Not that other shows aren't also trying to fill in that Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood space, such as Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood. But the sad part about Mr. Rogers' legacy is that it looms so large that no one will readily admit that anyone does that type of show as good as he does, or better. Or would have to be so much better that it would undeniably top the original. And Mabel McClay certainly doesn't do that. One interesting thing I do have to say about the show is that Jeremy Boring originally had another person in mind for a Mr. Rogers
Was it Mr. Shapiro?
type show.
What we should do is hire Glenn Beck to be Mr. Rogers.
That's a terrible idea. Fucking Glenn Beck as Mr. Rogers. Do you guys know who Glenn Beck is? No. Fuck, I meant Glenn Beck. Hold on. This guy is not a good... No, this would be a terrible idea. If you want anybody to be Mr. Rogers, Tom Hanks or maybe Keanu Reeves. Everybody ever think of that? I don't think you have.
I mean, Glenn Beck is Mr. Rogers.
If this had been Glenn Beck as Mr. Rogers, it could have fueled an entire video, because I'm not only certain the show would have been overtly religious, it would have also had some absolute nonsense in it, like when Glenn Beck wrote a children's book.
Glenn Beck is fucking insane. Like, it doesn't even make sense to consider him as a Mr. Rogers figure. What are you talking about?
About Christmas. In it, Santa Claus was Jesus Christ's Batman-like protector. Learn more about it in my video on the subject. Also, since we're talking about Glenn Beck, I'd like to remind everyone that in 2011, after a shooting in Norway where a man murdered 77 people attacking the Workers' Youth League summer camp, Glenn Beck compared the camp to the Hitler Youth. While he condemned the violence, I don't think murdered children learning about political activism should be compared to being indoctrinated by Nazis. And that comparison should disqualify Glenn Beck from ever being compared to Mr. Rogers. The next two shows, Kid Explorer and Kid Fit Go, I'm going to talk about together because they come from the same production company. Or I should say production family, because these two programs are produced by the Fulcher family. Bubba and Elizabeth Fulcher, along with their kids, Elijah, Olivia, and Caleb, started producing videos back in 2019. Using Bubba's background in video production and Elizabeth's background in education, they put their kids front and center to star in a series of videos on YouTube under the channel name Kid Explorer.
Wow.
They made many attempts to launch different kinds of shows like Kid History, Biz Kid, and Kid Fit Chef, but the metrics on the
should have called it Kid Story, just like his story or her story. Little sexism there.
Channel were not the most promising. A handful of the kid history videos did well, and one fitness video called Kid Fit Go managed to get over 1 million views. But views drop off considerably over time, and the trailer for their new season, that never happened, at least on YouTube, got less than 5,000 views.
Damn. That sucks.
They attempted to make this brand more than a YouTube channel, though. There's a whole website that includes courses for schools and all sorts of other materials. Or rather, their website used to have all that stuff.
I mean, I'm assuming Kid Fit Go, again, is like something that's supposed to teach, have some kind of exercise culture, which is not a bad thing for kids to learn.
Now, it mostly just points people towards Bentkey. The project seemed like something of a dud until the Daily Wire rolled in to buy it. The result of their purchase is that two shows that have a very YouTube feel to them are now on Bentkey. Kid Explorer is a bit longer than its Kid History predecessor, offering a very quick look at the history of something kids might be familiar with, like phones. Studied in stark contrast to Mabel McClay, this show is very fast, with quick cuts, rapid jokes, and lots of insert footage from popular media. Although I remember myself asking who this show is really for, when in the first episode we got a reference to the 90s sitcom Saved by the Bell.
The idea for everyone having their own cell phone wasn't even a thought for most people, except for this guy.
Hello, who's calling? Zach Morris.
That joke
okay.
is probably for their parents. That
I don't get the joke. I don't understand it. I don't get it. What am I missing?
Combined with the frantic energy makes the whole experience seem less about learning and more about the wacky antics you see Cal get up to. It's a lot of noise being thrown at you. For the
like Coco Melon.
Daily Beast, Joe
It sounds like they're trying to cover all their bases. Some obnoxious shit, some normal shit. I guess that's the idea.
Berkowitz explained it well, writing, will first graders have some innate understanding of the stand-up comedy brick wall backdrop in the show's mic drop segments? Will they be able to correctly identify Zach Morris from a photo? And will they care after their mom explains who that is? And will they recognize the Joe Rogan announcement?
No, probably not. But I think that one of the things about kids shows is the parts that the parents don't, or the kids don't get. Those are like the funny moments for the parents that make the parents want to watch more. So having a little bit of an appeal to parents isn't necessarily a bad idea.
For me when it inexplicably pops up during an episode on Abraham Lincoln. If so, this child could probably just bypass an anti-woke kids TV streamer and graduate to Netflix. Kid Fit Go promised to be a fun way of exercising, but instead of making it fun games or challenges that kids can do while exercising, it's pretty much just a workout routine featuring children. We can see Cal from...
I mean, it's not necessarily a bad idea. I just wonder how tuned in the kids are going to be to it. Or like, are they actually going to be like, yeah, this is fucking awesome.
Kid Explorer is one of the 3 kids in this routine. He's joined by Elijah, who was seen in the earlier days of Kid Explorer, but I'm not entirely sure who their new friend Emery is. This recasting seems to replace Olivia, which I think confirms that Bentkey has gone completely woke. So score 1 for left here. Seems a little cold-blooded to cut your sister out of your exercise show, but hopefully she just didn't want to participate.
That's fucked
I
up.
tried the workout myself, and it was a decent bit of exercise. Certainly nothing that would really challenge an adult, but for kids, it's probably fine.
Get the fuck out of here. Most adults would feel very challenged by that. Most adults would be struggling. I'm one of those adults, okay? I don't give a fuck. I'll admit it. I'll admit it.
The only part of it that really exhausted me was being told, that's how you kid fit go.
That is how you kid fit go.
That is how you kid fit go.
Now that is how you kid fit go.
And that's pretty much all there is to say about these two programs. They're YouTube shows with a budget. I'm not sure.
Imagine being fucking forced to exercise for work. Ugh. Fucking torture.
Why someone would pay to watch them, though I suspect it was easier to buy the rights to these than it was from various international programs that were also licensed for the platform. The licensed programs on Bentkey were all completely foreign names to me, quite literally, since the majority of them are produced in other parts of the world. They're almost entirely from Europe, many of them several years old.
Interesting.
Surprisingly, many of them are French, such as Louis and Yoko Build, Runes, and Ernest and Celestine the Collection.
Those are kind of fucking cool, though, not gonna lie.
But there's also Jasmine and Jambo from Spain and Clangers from the UK. One of the main criticisms
do they voice over some of them? Like, because who wants a fucking, like, obviously you're gonna have to, you don't want like a Spanish, do people in Spain speak Spanish, or is that a dumb question? I don't know. Also, you gotta voice over the fucking English people going, "Oi, you want to go get a bit of Chinese?" You know, you kind of gotta dub over that. That shit's fucking obnoxious, man.
Have for these shows is not really about their content, but that several of them are freely available to stream on YouTube. In the case of How Ridiculous, that's just a YouTube channel that you can watch for free. Other programs that aren't already on YouTube are on streaming services such as Prime Video and Apple TV+. Okay. There isn't much incentive when these programs are already available elsewhere on platforms that have way more content available. Many of them have dozens of episodes of these programs that Bentkey is missing.
Well, I think the idea is to just kind of inflate it up with different stuff so that parents feel like it's worth the buy. So they're like, instead of just getting the 4 Daily Wire originals, if that was all that was on there, they'd be like, oh, this is kind of underwhelming. But you get like, what'd you say, 18? It's like, oh, okay, all of a sudden I'm more interested in checking it out, even if you have no interest in checking out most of them. Because we mostly engage like that. Like, how much do you watch on Netflix? If I watch a couple of shows a month, and then you subscribe for however much money. You know? It's the reality. It's the same thing with video. And then there are some people who be like, no, I look at a lot of stuff. And it's like, okay, that's fair. I'm sure I believe you. You know, liar. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sure there are people, but most people don't engage with a lot. It's the same thing with video games. Like, people buy systems for video games. Like, I bought a PlayStation 5 for God of War, and I almost never play. I never play the fucking PlayStation. I got duped, you know? That's a somewhat common thing to happen to people. So, it's kind of true.
As they're rolling out their library with new editions every Saturday. Saturday morning cartoons is a cute idea, but if I have a kid who wants to watch 20 episodes of something now, it's a lot easier.
Bro, I can't play a Horde Paladin, dude. What the fuck are you talking about, bro? I'm playing a rogue. I was gonna try to tank, but you can't tank until you get fucking honored with this shit. It's actually very annoying.
To just open up Amazon Prime rather than tell them to wait 5 months for them to
very
come
annoying.
out. A lot of these services also have special modes that limit content to exclusively show kids programming. The only thing you're really preventing your kids from seeing is supposed left-wing content in their children's programming. Not all of these licensed programs are waiting for their episodes to be added on each Saturday morning, though. A number of episodes for some of these shows have been removed entirely. Jeremy Boring says as much right here.
We vetted every single episode. Some of the shows that we would license from around the world, maybe there were 3 episodes that we didn't agree with. So we just threw those episodes out. They're not on the platform. Every single piece of...
Oh, they went through some episodes of some of those stuff and they got rid of them? What did they say? Gay people weren't fucking demons? Gays aren't demons?
The content that a kid will be exposed to on Bentkey, at a minimum, will be neutral in terms of the sort of woke identity politics of the moment.
It does raise the question, which episode...
I mean, listen, not every time that there's a representation in something, it doesn't mean that everything is a woke identity politic. Everything woke identity politics, baby.
Precisely were removed and why. Looking over the episodes that are available on Bentkey, you can make a decent guess over which ones were skipped over based on other episode lists on other streaming services or IMDb.
Well, it's not really a guess at that point. You're literally parsing through that information. Okay.
But since Bentkey is still adding new episodes and doesn't always stick to the same order as these other places, it's impossible to be absolutely certain
the interface looks nice, honestly,
that missing episodes aren't coming out sometime in the future. For example, Clangers is missing an episode that seems to be a climate change allegory, with everyone working together to help deal with a bout of cold weather. And Truck Games has a missing episode where the mini trucks help a windmill power a city, which could be seen as an allusion to green energy.
Wow. Is that really all it is? Is that it has a fucking windmill powered city, and that's all it took for them to be like, nah, that's some kind of a psyop? I mean, even if you don't believe that there's climate change is real, for instance, I'd imagine you'd want to you'd still wouldn't be against moving towards a cleaner version of energy. Because even if you don't think that the Earth is raising in temperature, which it is, you're wrong if you don't think that. I imagine you realize that it's bad for people, especially when you're seeing so many people that live close to these factories with so much runoff are getting very sick, and you would understand that just intuitively. That you wouldn't want you wouldn't put your mouth to a car, would you? Or to the exhaust of a car. So I feel like even people who don't believe in climate change aren't that against green energy. But okay, whatever.
Of course, Bentkey has new episodes planned for many weeks more, so it is possible that these episodes could appear down the line. Even so, I do think it's interesting that these particular ones were passed over. However, Borin's comment...
Am I playing Horde? Because I had somebody else I was playing with for a little bit of playing Horde, so I decided to play Horde on a Crusader strike, and now that person I don't play, so it is what it is.
Earlier about removing certain episodes mentioned woke identity politics, and that makes me think the episodes removed probably has something to do with representation. I didn't really spot anything like that in the few missing episodes that I could identify, so maybe these are episodes that are yet to be not included on the Daily Wire service. Looking over the response to Bentkey, particularly from those who don't like the Daily Wire, many have observed that the programming isn't very political. That is, it doesn't contain the obvious right-wing messaging of an episode of Ben Shapiro's show. Several articles have pointed out that it mostly reinforces typical heterosexual nuclear family dynamics, and that's the extent of its politics, making it mostly harmless. In this context, I think it would make a bit more sense to ask ourselves what exactly counts as political. The Daily Wire has spent years complaining about what they would call forced diversity in media, and this platform is a direct response to the supposed political activism of Disney, to create a platform that goes out of its way to avoid diversity, to counter what it believes its political encroachment is a political act. That they may call it apolitical only says something about their biases on what should be considered normal in children's entertainment. To them, normal is not including any LGBT characters or avoiding any discussion or mention of topics such as race or...
Well, you think that they would at least have a character that refused to believe that they're gay, because most of these people on Daily Wire are super fucking gay, and they pretend that they're not. I mean, all of them are. You look at them, definitely. I forget one guy's name. But a lot of them are just very closet homosexual. Steven Crowder, for sure, is a closet homosexual. It's fucking insane.
Climate change. Normal for them means kids wouldn't see any of this until they were older, and when they do, it'd be some kind of aberration in the world. That is, a distortion created by left-wing politics interrupting their normal world. What this means for children who live in families that include members of the LGBT community or face issues such as racism aren't really considered. I guess their lives aren't normal, and the Daily Wire doesn't seem any reason why their lives should be reflected in any of their entertainment. And these children from the more typical families would lose the benefit of understanding their friends who have less traditional family dynamics. The Daily Wire is expecting kids to live in a world where none of these ideas can impact them until they're older and can effectively label them as abnormal. What makes all of this even more ridiculous is that there's nothing inherently political about belonging to any of these historically underrepresented groups. These people exist and have always existed for as long as people have been around. They're just as normal as any other kind of person. These identities have been politicized for a variety of reasons, whether it's to extract free labor, use them as a political wedge issue, or many other reasons.
I mean, yeah, it always starts well-intentioned, I think, of trying to be more, add more representation into some things, but sometimes it can go in a bad direction. Personally, I'm kind of burnt out on forced representation. It's kind of annoying. I'm at a point now where I don't even give a fuck. It's so annoying. I don't think that the way that we're teaching people is the right way to go. I'm fine with teaching people about racism, but I don't know if teaching about critical race theory is necessarily a good idea to continuously focus so heavily on race as a factor. It is a factor, of course, but is it really a productive conversation to have? I mean, we talk so much about all this shit, but what real action do we give? We don't. I mean, realistically, we'd be better off trying to defeat poverty than having this insane focus on race. I don't know that it's necessarily always constructive. It can be. It just feels like, wouldn't it be easier or better if we tried to eliminate the poverty issue, which is hard. Everything's hard, but it's like we're educating people on different forms of systemic racism, instead of actually like, hey, what if we fixed our welfare system and got our tax codes under control and, you know, made it so that people were less poor because they had more opportunity.
Deliberately exclude these groups is far more political than including them, because to acknowledge these people exist is just acknowledging reality. To pretend they don't, or that children need to be protected from them, and that society needs to intervene to make that happen, is to politicize a group of people based on their identity. Kids can see a gay parent and it's not going to absolutely shatter their mind or indoctrinate them into some kind of extreme political identity. Something may feel normal because it's something that's been done for centuries, but that doesn't make it okay. And it doesn't mean we shouldn't have a new normal that lets these people exist in our world. If someone thinks two women—
I mean, it's the difference between like normal versus accepted, right? I mean, it's like, oh yeah, normally people, one mom, one dad, not a big deal. But sometimes people are gay. It's not even that it's a normal. It's just that it's not like abnormal anymore. Like, who gives a fuck?
A scene in a children's cartoon will damage them. It's not because gay people are dangerous. It's because that person has bought into a political fiction that gay people prey on children, and that certain politicians need to be elected to protect you from that fiction. Just like the Daily Wire needs to pretend that there's a problem with Disney so they can sell you their streaming service.
Well, again, there can be. Disney can be fucking annoying sometimes, but
they're inventing a problem and selling a solution. One where politicians get power and influence, and the Daily Wire gets all that subscriber money. All of this is political. But if we're talking about the impact of Bentkey specifically, there may be no impact whatsoever if people aren't actually using the thing. Looking at the performance on the Apple Store, we can see that the Bentkey app has been rated about 1,800 times, and on the Google Play Store, it has 1,400 ratings.
Damn, 3.9, that feels low. I feel like it's not good if it's under 4.5, at least in the Apple Store. That's just my fucking opinion. I could be wrong about that, but that seems kind of low. That seems a little too honest, but okay.
The Google page also gives us a more useful metric of 50,000 plus downloads. I've been keeping an eye on that download number over the month it's launched, and that number has been pretty steady. So if it's growing at all, it's not doing it terribly quickly. A generous estimate of these numbers would put downloads at around 200,000. Leaving that high download number alone, we also have to take into consideration that anyone with a Daily Wire Plus subscription, last reported at being over 1 million people, is getting Bentkey for free.
Yeah, it's true. Not everybody subscribes. Some people just download it to check it out and go, fuck this, and delete it just because they're lazy, like myself when I download anything new.
So in all likelihood, this app is not...
Guild War 2 gameplay? I used to have Guild Wars 2, but then I stopped playing it very quickly because it wasn't really for me, and then somebody stole my account, and then I never got it back.
nearly where it needs to be to earn enough to sustain itself.
Care enough to get it
but
back.
To be fair, it's only been a month, and it takes time to build an audience. The people who are signing up now are the Daily Wire faithful who will happily lap up everything they do. The fact that a minority of its subscriber base seem to download this app doesn't necessarily mean that other people won't look for it in the future. But to do that, they have to drive people towards its audience with a big premiere, which is why the Daily Wire is going big with its first feature for Bentkey, Snow White and the Evil Queen, starring Brett Cooper. If you have no idea who that is, she's an actress turned Daily Wire talking head who does pretty well on YouTube. As you might have guessed, this movie was created in response to Disney announcing that they're doing...
I'm pretty sure that's just Ben Shapiro, like in drag at this point, because I've never seen that. I mean, I'm just convinced. I know that they've made some content where like they're supposedly together in the same room, but I also feel like maybe that's what they want you to think, you know?
A live-action Snow White, which everyone quickly labeled as woke because the actress who plays Snow White isn't white, and the actors who play the dwarves were of various body types and ethnicities.
No, that's not. See, this is the problem. Like, that's a legitimate criticism. People didn't just label it woke because she was, and that's part of it, that she wasn't white. People labeled it too woke because they didn't even use fucking dwarves in their thing, which is, in my opinion, disrespectful. And like, yeah, she wasn't perfectly white, but she is white. Let's be real. But they dramatically changed the story, and she's just unlikable. Like, she's just kind of a bitch in the way that she portrays her movie. It sounds like she hates the source material. I think that she even admitted she never watched Snow White. So it's not like you're getting somebody who will, respect the source material or like cares about the thing. It just seems like these people don't even like what they're doing, and they're just changing it because the way that they talk about it is just so resentful. You know, some people are just like, I hate people that aren't white, but I think a lot of people too are just like, yeah, this is just off. Like, why make something if you don't respect your source material, you know?
Of course, maybe the dwarves are now all going to be CG according to a more recent image, so who knows what this
Yeah, and they're not even fucking dwarf actors, so it's ridiculous.
final product will eventually look like. The Daily Wire version of the Snow White seems like
Why do I keep talking about eating dogs recently? It's not that I'm talking about it on purpose. It's just that dogs come up, dude. And sometimes you got to eat a dog. You know, builds character, dude.
something you'd see from Asylum, a rather notorious production company that responds to various popular Hollywood movies with their own slightly altered versions. For instance, they responded to Top Gun with Top Gunner. They responded to The Fast and the Furious with Fast and Fierce. Or maybe most similarly here, they responded to the live-action Disney Aladdin with Adventures of Aladdin. You don't have to change the name around too much when the character is already in the public domain.
Yeah, that's true. Smart.
I have no idea if Bentkey will be able to copy this blueprint for success, but it's certainly a strategy that Asylum is.
I think they're just trying to get a lot of meme views. They're trying to see if they can build off a meme audience. I heard Lady Ballers wasn't that great. It was like okay, it was mediocre. I don't know if I'm gonna get it.
It's made work. It's also kind of weird that again, to differentiate themselves from Disney, they are just copying them with a lower budget. And before anyone asks, I will probably do a review for the Snow White movie. They're claiming to be sticking close to the original, which I assume means the Brothers Grimm version, so it'll hopefully end authentically, with the evil queen being forced to wear red-hot slippers and then dancing to her death. The Daily Wire's foray into entertainment began several years ago, when they started—
That'd be kind of fucking awesome, honestly. I'd be a little bit badass. I'm just being real with you, man. That'd be fucking crazy.
putting movies on their streaming service. The Daily Wire needs these projects to help them break into the mainstream, and so far that hasn't happened. They are planning on releasing their first drama series in 2024, though, based on the Pendragon Cycle books. They also mentioned they are adapting Atlas Shrugged into something in the future. Of course, we had a series of movies.
It's just lame because they'll never do anything other than like some weird Christian shit, you know? Do something fucking based, man.
That adapted Atlas Shrugged a few years ago that were a complete bomb, but I guess they're going to give it a shot now. Personally, I'd be more confident in the Pendragon series being anything other than a train wreck if it wasn't also being directed by Jeremy Boring. Though he does have a little bit of experience directing, I'm not sure a big expensive drama series is something you want to put in the hands of a novice, although it'll probably be a lot more fun if it is a train wreck. It makes the whole thing seem like a vanity project. And when vanity projects get mainstream attention, it's usually for the wrong reason.
Oh, hi, Mark.
The path to success for Bentkey only exists outside of the usual conservative media bubble. The Daily Wire is betting pretty big on this, as Matt Walsh mentions in one clip.
People need to support it. If they don't, it could be a disastrous failure. It could take the whole company down, given the amount of financial investment we've put in.
I honestly don't believe that's true. Matt Walsh is just notoriously a fucking the fearmonger, and I think he's one of the worst, definitely when it comes to trans people. So to me, that's just interpreted as like he's just trying to get you to feel like you have to buy this, or like it could be the fucking end of the world for their company.
This statement, along with statements from Boring and others at the Daily Wire, taken alongside the huge dollar amounts being thrown around, suggests that this service is a big gamble for the company.
I don't know.
The Daily Wire
I'm sure
has
it's a fairly large gamble, but I don't think it's like too. Oh, what the hell? I think that if it doesn't go well, they can kind of dissolve it, and it's not going to destroy them.
History of stepping out of its usual comfort space of conservative commentary. In 2022, after Harry's Razors dropped its advertisements with the Daily Wire, Boring launched Jeremy's Razors, a supposedly non-woke alternative to Harry's. And when Hershey's used a trans woman in an ad, Boring launched Jeremy's Chocolate, which is supposedly non-woke, even though it has pronouns on its package. It's the same reactionary philosophy that created Bentkey and the Snow White adaptation, creating products based on outrage. While it seems like a good idea to use the marketing of outrage that they helped create,
I mean, how long do these products last? Or are they just like one-run cycles that are just meant to be fucking dumb?
There's a big difference between selling chocolate and a streaming service. Looking at Jeremy's Chocolate and Razors really quickly, these are white label products. For those unfamiliar with what those are, a white label product is something you buy in bulk from a distributor. For example, you buy chocolate in bulk and then have custom labels printed on them. The Daily Wire isn't spending any money researching and developing these products. They're being made by other people, and the Daily Wire is slapping their logo on them and selling them for a higher price. You may have noticed children selling chocolate to raise money for field trips. It's the same basic idea.
Yeah,
but instead of sending little Billy to the science center,
Are you saying that they're fucking ripping people off with their Pokimane chocolate?
Instead are spending $18.74 on 4 generic chocolate bars to somehow own the libs. These chocolates and grooming items aren't any better than some no-name brand you might find.
Oh shit, he threw the groom. I got thrown off when he said grooming items, but he just meant razors.
And sold on Alibaba. But customers
we're watching about like the Bentkey, the kids shit.
Pay a premium to signify that they are part of a culture war, and they are outraged at the antics of the left. And the profit made from that outrage goes straight into the Daily Wire's pocket. A year later, after being announced, Jeremy's Razors seem to be struggling. Again, we don't have any numbers other than what the Daily Wire has given us, but even what few they've announced.
Could you imagine going to your wife and being like, yeah, I want Jeremy's Razors for Christmas? It's like, what is that? Yeah, you know the Daily Wire, they're owning the fucking libs. Your wife would be fucking embarrassed by you. It's fucking pathetic, you know? So what the hell are you doing there?
Don't reveal a very rosy picture. As Miles Key for the Rolling Stone puts it in his article, the Daily Wire has perhaps strategically chosen not to reveal how many are currently subscribed to the Razor service, only reporting in their latest update that Jeremy's Razors have moved 130,000 units, less than 3 Razors per original subscription if the 45,000 subscriptions at launch estimate was accurate. These products are...
They probably thought it was going to be like this awesome service, and they realized that it was just kind of existed. So that's probably why.
Basically low-level scams, selling cheap products to turn a quick buck, getting some of those outraged dollars. This streaming service is a whole other beast though. If the Daily Wire's numbers are to be believed, they have spent tens of millions of dollars getting this project off the ground. No doubt much of that going towards expensive licensing fees for its content and producing their own programming. Whatever you may think of Chip Chilla or Mabel McClay, they undoubtedly had more money invested into them than the chocolate bars and razors. But the problem is, much like the chocolate bar and razors, the streaming service only seems to appeal to people based on the amount of outrage or anger they feel towards the supposed wokeness of Disney.
So they gotta hype it up. They gotta hype up that wokeness, baby, or the woke outrage, the performative woke outrage.
And they can't rely on that same conservative audience spending its money to own the libs to carry them to their dreams of being an entertainment company. They need to make some kind of mainstream breakout to recoup all these expenses and turn a profit. And so far, that just isn't happening. I'm sure they're saving costs by hiring friends and employees to handle creative duties, but if Bentkey fizzles out and never earns back the money spent, this could be a very costly loss for the company. My feelings on that are best summed up by Mabel McClay.
Wasn't that something?
I want to thank the wonderful YouTuber Zoe B for the assist she had in some of the research for this video. Everyone go check out her channel. Her videos are fantastic, and make sure you subscribe to her as well. While I'm very skeptical that Bentkey will have a long and healthy life, the Daily Wire does have a history of throwing money at failing projects for weirdly long lengths of time. This one seems like it's a little too costly to do it for the long term though. I hope it just sticks around long enough for that Snow White movie to come out so I can make a video about it. I have a very fun idea on how to cover it, and I am looking forward to making that video. If you're looking forward...
Is he gonna act? Are you gonna be a fucking theater nerd too? You gonna be a theater nerd?
...to seeing my videos in the future though, do consider becoming a patron.
Alright, cool. Alright, that's that.